Osama bin Laden is one of the most recognizable names in modern history. Even decades after his death, his name still evokes fear, anger, confusion, and endless debate. But beyond the image of a bearded man in grainy videos, beyond headlines and slogans, lies a far more complex story. To understand how one man came to shape global politics, war, and security for generations, we must begin at the very start, not with terrorism, but with privilege. Osama bin Laden was born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, into extraordinary wealth. His father, Mohammed bin Laden, was a construction tycoon who built some of the most important projects in Saudi Arabia, including renovations of the holy mosques in Mecca and Medina. The bin Laden family was deeply connected to the Saudi royal family and lived a life of immense luxury. Osama grew up surrounded by comfort, security, and opportunity. He was not born into poverty, oppression, or desperation, a fact that would later puzzle many who tried to understand his path. Despite the family's wealth, Osama's childhood was not entirely stable. His father died in a plane crash when Osama was still young. After his death, the massive bin Laden empire was divided among many children from different wives. Osama became one of dozens of siblings. Though still wealthy, he was no longer at the center of attention. Those who knew him as a child described him as quiet, shy, and deeply religious, often more serious than other children his age. As Osama grew older, religion began to take a central role in his identity. He studied in elite schools and later attended King Abdul Aziz University in Jeddah, where he studied economics and public administration. During his university years, he came into contact with radical Islamist thinkers who believed that the Muslim world was under attack from Western influence, corruption, and moral decay. These ideas would slowly but permanently shape his worldview. At the same time, global events were unfolding that would change Osama bin Laden's life forever. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Across the Muslim world, this invasion was seen not just as a political conflict, but as an assault on Islam itself. Clerics called for jihad, a religious struggle, to defend Afghan Muslims. Thousands of volunteers from different countries traveled to Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. Osama bin Laden was one of them. When he arrived in Afghanistan, Osama did not initially fight on the front lines. Instead, he used his wealth and connections to support the cause. He funded training camps, built roads, hospitals, and supply routes, and helped organize foreign fighters. Over time, he gained respect and influence among the Mujahideen. This period transformed him. Afghanistan gave Osama bin Laden a sense of purpose, belonging, and power that he had never experienced before. The Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan in 1989 marked a turning point. The Mujahideen celebrated their victory, believing they had defeated a superpower through faith and sacrifice. Osama bin Laden absorbed a dangerous lesson from this moment, that determined believers could defeat even the strongest military forces in the world. This belief would later guide his actions against the United States. After returning to Saudi Arabia, Osama expected recognition for his role in Afghanistan. Instead, he grew increasingly disillusioned with the Saudi government. His anger deepened in 1990 when Iraq invaded Kuwait and Saudi Arabia invited American troops onto its soil for protection. For Osama, the presence of non-Muslim foreign soldiers in the land of Islam's holiest sites was unacceptable. He publicly criticized the Saudi leadership, a move that sealed his break from the regime. As his criticism intensified, Osama bin Laden was stripped of his influence, placed under surveillance, and eventually forced into exile. He left Saudi Arabia and settled first in Sudan, where he began building what would later become Al-Qaeda. During this time, Osama shifted from being a supporter of jihad to becoming its ideological leader. His focus expanded beyond regional conflicts to a broader vision of confronting Western power, particularly the United States. By the mid-1990s, Osama bin Laden had fully embraced the idea that America was the main enemy of Islam. He believed the United States supported corrupt regimes in the Middle East, backed Israel against Palestinians, imposed sanctions that harmed civilians, and interfered militarily in Muslim lands. In his mind, these actions justified violent resistance. In 1996, Osama bin Laden issued his first declaration of war against the United States. 2 years later, he escalated further by announcing the formation of a global jihadist front. That same year, U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed, killing hundreds of people. These attacks placed Osama bin Laden firmly on America's radar and marked him as a global terrorist threat. Yet even as his influence grew, Osama bin Laden remained an elusive figure. He avoided technology, rarely appeared in public, and relied on couriers to communicate. He cultivated an image of simplicity, portraying himself as a humble warrior living for faith rather than luxury. But behind this image was a sophisticated network capable of coordinating complex international attacks. The defining moment of Osama bin Laden's life came on September 11, 2001. The attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon shocked the world. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in a single morning. For Osama, the attacks represented both a strategic victory and a turning point. He had succeeded in striking the most powerful nation on Earth, but he had also unleashed consequences far beyond his control. After 9/11, Osama bin Laden became the most wanted man in history. The United States launched the War on Terror, invading Afghanistan to dismantle Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden fled, narrowly escaping capture. For the next decade, he lived in hiding, moving between remote areas and eventually settling in a fortified compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. During these years, Osama bin Laden's influence gradually declined. Al-Qaeda lost territory, leaders, and funding. New extremist groups emerged, some even rejecting bin Laden's authority. Though still a symbolic figure, he was increasingly isolated, a man whose ideas had reshaped the world, yet who could no longer control what they had become. On May 2, 2011, U.S. Navy SEALs carried out a covert operation that ended Osama bin Laden's life. He was killed inside his compound, and his body was buried at sea. For many, his death brought a sense of closure. For others, it raised difficult questions. Had killing one man truly changed anything, or had his ideology already spread beyond him? Osama bin Laden's life is not a story of madness or simplicity. It is the story of how ideology, power, global politics, and personal grievance can intersect in devastating ways. He was not born a monster. He became one through choices, beliefs, and circumstances that fed into each other over time. Understanding who Osama bin Laden was doesn't mean justifying what he did. It means recognizing how extremism is formed and how easily it can grow when fear, anger, and identity are manipulated. His story is a warning, not just about terrorism, but about what happens when the world fails to address injustice without violence, and when ideology replaces humanity. Osama bin Laden is gone, but the consequences of his life remain. The wars, the surveillance, the fear, and the divisions that followed him are still part of our world today. And that is why understanding his story is not about the past. It is about the future.